The alarm bells rang through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building. Red lights flashed on every wall as thousands of alien beings rushed to their emergency stations. Something very bad was happening in the outer parts of the galaxy, and everyone knew it. Admiral Zixthara from the Centaurian fleet stood at the center of the great meeting room. Her blue skin looked pale with worry as she stared at the huge screen showing the galaxy map. Red dots covered entire sections of space, and more red dots appeared every few minutes. "The Void Hunters have broken through our third defense line," she announced to the room full of worried alien leaders. "They destroyed the Kepler defense station 6 hours ago. We lost over 2 million soldiers." Council member Veltar from the Aquarian Federation hit his desk with his tentacle. Water dripped from his gills as he spoke with anger. "How is this possible? We had our best ships defending that sector. The Kepler station was supposed to be unbreakable. The Void Hunters are not like any enemy we have faced before," Admiral Zixthara replied. "They learn from every battle. Every tactic we use against them, they adapt to within hours. Our weapons that worked yesterday are useless today." High Chancellor Mordith, the oldest and wisest leader in the council, slowly stood up from his chair. His reptilian eyes had seen many wars in his long life, but nothing like this. "Show us the battle recordings," he said in his deep voice. The lights dimmed, and the main screen showed video from the last battle. Alien ships fired their best weapons at the enemy fleet. The Void Hunter ships looked like giant metal spiders, with red glowing eyes. When the Council ships shot at them, the enemy ships simply changed their armor to block the attacks. When the Council ships tried to run away, the Void Hunters somehow knew exactly where they would go. "They are not just ships," explained Intelligence Director Kashina. "They are machines that think and learn. Each one shares knowledge with all the others. When we destroy one ship, the rest immediately know how we did it and protect themselves." The room fell silent as everyone watched more footage. The Void Hunters did not just destroy enemy ships. They captured them and turned the crews into machine-like slaves. Entire planets were being stripped of all life and resources. "How many systems have we lost?" asked Council Member Poulter from the Rigel colonies. 47 star systems in the past month," Admiral Zixthara answered. "At this rate, they will reach the core worlds within 6 months." Fear spread through the room like a cold wind. The core worlds were where most of the alien races lived. If the Void Hunters reached them, billions would die or become slaves. "What about our reserve fleets?" asked another council member. "We have committed everything," the admiral replied. "The Centaurian fleet has lost 60% of its ships. The Aquarian Federation has lost half of theirs. The Rigel Defense Force was completely destroyed, trying to stop them at the Vega system." High Chancellor Mordith walked to the center of the room. His old claws clicked on the metal floor as he moved. "We must contact the younger races. The ones who have not yet joined our council, but have shown skill in battle." "The Deltans refuse to help," reported Kashia. "They say this is not their war. The Epsilon colonies are too far away to send help in time." "What about the humans?" asked Veltar. "They showed great courage in the border conflicts 20 years ago. Their ships are primitive, but their tactics are ... unusual." Admiral Zixthara pulled up information about the human military on her datapad. "I contacted their Earth Command 3 days ago. They declined our request for help." "Declined?" Mordis's voice showed surprise. "Did they give a reason?" "Their military leaders said their active forces lack the experience needed for this type of warfare. They said they have never fought an enemy like the Void Hunters before." The room buzzed with disappointment. Many had hoped the humans would help. They were known for being stubborn fighters who never gave up. "However," Kashina continued, "they did mention something strange. The human commander said their current soldiers were too young and inexperienced. But he suggested we might want to talk to what he called their old soldiers from their great wars. Council member Veltar's tentacles moved in confusion. Old soldiers? Why would they think we want their elderly warriors when we need their strongest fighters? I asked the same question, Kashina replied. The human commander just smiled and said we would understand when we met them. He gave us contact information for someone called Colonel Morrison. This makes no sense, said Admiral Zixthara. We are facing the greatest threat in galactic history, and the humans want to send us their old retired soldiers? High Chancellor Mordith was quiet for a long moment. His ancient eyes stared at the galaxy map, watching more red dots appear. As the Void Hunters conquered more systems. The humans are a strange race, he said finally. They think differently than we do. Perhaps there is wisdom in their suggestion that we cannot see. With respect, Chancellor, said Veltar, wisdom will not stop the Void Hunters. We need weapons and warriors, not old stories from elderly humans. What other choice do we have? Mordith asked. Our fleets are broken. Our best tactics have failed. If we continue fighting the same way, we will lose everything within months. The room fell silent again. Everyone knew the Chancellor was right. They had tried everything they could think of, and nothing worked. The Void Hunters were too smart, too adaptable, and too strong. Contact this Colonel Morrison, Mordith ordered. Tell him we accept the humans' offer. We will take any help they can give us. Chancellor, Admiral Zixthara said carefully, what if these old humans cannot help us? What if they are just as helpless as our own forces? Mordith looked at her with eyes that had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. Then we will die with honor, knowing we tried everything possible. But something tells me we should not underestimate these human elders. Any race that survives long enough to have old soldiers has learned lessons that younger races have not. As the council meeting ended, emergency messages were sent across the galaxy. More ships were being recalled from distant sectors. Evacuation. Plans were being made for the core worlds. Everyone prepared for the worst while hoping for a miracle. On a small blue planet called Earth, an old human sat in his garden, reading a message that had just arrived from space. Colonel Jake Morrison was 73 years old, with gray hair and wrinkled hands. He had fought in 3 major wars and had been retired for 10 years. The message was simple. The galaxy needs your help. An enemy we cannot defeat is destroying. Everything, will you come? Morrison smiled as he read the message. He had been waiting for this call, even though he had not known it was coming. He stood up slowly, his old bones creaking, and walked to his house to make some phone calls. It was time to gather the old soldiers. The young aliens were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who look like they should have given up long ago. And sometimes the best weapons are the ones that have been tested by time and tempered by experience. The galaxy was about to discover what human veterans could do when they had nothing left to lose and everything to protect. 3 days had passed since the Galactic Council sent their desperate message to Colonel Morrison. In the Kepler 442 system, the situation was getting worse by the hour. The Void Hunters had arrived in force, and the remaining Council ships were falling back to their final defensive line. Fleet Commander Jackson of the Alliance Navy stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the tactical display with growing fear. 12 massive Void Hunter ships moved through space like hungry predators. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and armor that seemed to shift and change as they moved. Sir, we have lost contact with the Meridian Defense platform, reported his communications officer. The Void Hunters destroyed it 15 minutes ago. Jackson closed his 4 eyes and tried to think. His people, the Altarians, were known for their logical minds and careful planning. But logic seemed useless against an enemy that learned faster than they could adapt. "How many ships do we have left?" he asked. 43 combat vessels, sir. The Centaurian fleet has 31 ships remaining. The Aquarian Federation has 18. Less than 100 ships against 12 Void Hunter dreadnoughts and their support craft. The math was simple and terrifying. They could not win this fight. Suddenly, the ship's sensors detected something new. A small blip appeared on the edge of the system, moving toward them at standard speed. It was not moving fast like a military ship would. It was traveling slowly, almost casually. "Sir, we have an unknown vessel approaching," called out Lieutenant Ulra from the sensor station. "It appears to be ... human." Jackson opened his eyes and looked at the display. The ship was tiny compared to the massive war vessels around it. It looked old and worn, with hull patches and scorch marks that spoke of many battles fought long ago. "Are you certain it is human?" Jackson asked. "Yes, sir. I am detecting human life signs aboard. Approximately 200 individuals. But, sir..." Eulora paused, checking his readings again. "According to our biological scanners, they are all elderly. The youngest appears to be over 60 years old in human terms." Jackson stared at the display in confusion. The Council had indeed contacted the humans for help, but this was not what anyone had expected. One small, old ship with elderly crew. Members was not going to change the outcome of this battle. "Sir, the human vessel is hailing us," reported the communications officer. "Put them through," Jackson ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of the human ship. An old human male sat in the captain's chair, wearing what looked like an ancient military uniform. His hair was gray, and his face was marked with the lines of age and experience. "This is Colonel Jake Morrison of the USS Liberty," the human said, in a calm voice. "We received your call for help, requesting permission to engage the enemy." Jackson could not hide his shock. "Colonel Morrison, with respect, you have one ship. The Void Hunters have destroyed entire fleets. Perhaps you should fall back and..." "Son," Morrison interrupted gently, "we did not come here to run away. We came here to fight. Now, are you going to give us permission to engage, or do we need to go around you?" Behind Morrison, other elderly humans could be seen working at various stations. They moved with the confident efficiency of people who had done these jobs for many years. Their equipment looked old but well maintained. "Colonel, our sensors show your ship is not equipped with modern weapons or armor. The Void Hunters will destroy you in seconds." Morrison smiled, and there was something in that smile that made Jackson feel uneasy. It was not the smile of a frightened old man. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. "Fleet Commander, how long have you been fighting wars?" Morrison asked. "I have served in the military for 23 years, Jackson replied. "I have been fighting wars for over 50 years, Morrison said. "I fought in the Martian Independence War, the Jupiter mining riots, and the corporate wars. My crew has similar experience. We have fought enemies that your military academies have never heard of." On the Liberty's bridge, other crew members were making final preparations. Sergeant Danny Webb, 68 years old, ran weapon diagnostics at his station. He had served in more ground battles than most soldiers could imagine. His hands moved over the controls like a musician playing a familiar song. "Weapons ready, Colonel," Webb reported. "All systems green." Captain Lucy Carter sat at the pilot's station, studying the enemy formation through narrowed eyes. At 71, she had piloted ships through the asteroid mining conflicts where a single mistake meant death. She had learned to fly in places where normal pilots would not dare to go. "I see 12 big fish and a whole school of little ones," she said calmly. "They are moving in standard predator formation." probably expecting us to run or attack head-on. What do you recommend, Lucy? Morrison asked. We go through the asteroid field. Use the rocks for cover. Come at them from their blind spot. These machine boys think like computers. Computers do not like surprises. Master Chief Pete Rodriguez stood near the back of the bridge, checking his equipment. At 75, he was the oldest member of the crew, but his eyes were still sharp and his hands were steady. He had led boarding operations on hostile stations during the Outer Colony rebellions. Boarding teams ready, Colonel, Rodriguez reported. If we can get close enough, we can take one of their ships and turn it against them. Fleet Commander Jackson listened to this conversation with growing amazement. These elderly humans were not just planning to fight the Void Hunters. They were planning to win. Colonel Morrison, Jackson said, the Void Hunters adapt to every tactic within hours. Whatever strategy you use, they will learn from it and counter it. That is what makes them predictable, Morrison replied. They think adaptation is the same as intelligence. But real intelligence knows when not to adapt. Sometimes the best strategy is to do something so crazy that adaptation becomes impossible. The Liberty began moving toward the enemy formation, but not in a straight line like a normal attack. Instead, Captain Carter guided the ship into the nearby asteroid field, disappearing behind chunks of rock and ice. What are they doing? Asked Lieutenant Ulra. Something we have never seen before, Jackson replied, watching with fascination. The Void Hunter ships detected the Liberty's movement, but seemed confused by the approach. Their formations shifted slightly, trying to anticipate where the human ship would emerge. But Carter was not following any pattern they could predict. Colonel, came a voice over the radio from another human crew member. Enemy ships are repositioning. They are trying to track us. Let them try, Morrison replied. Danny, are you ready with the surprise package? Ready when you are, sir. Webb answered from his weapons station. The Liberty suddenly shot out from behind a large asteroid, but not where the Void Hunters expected. Instead of attacking the main fleet, the small human ship dove toward one of the smaller support vessels. They are going to ram it, gasped Ulra, but the Liberty did not ram the enemy ship. At the last second, it dropped something small and fast-moving. The object struck the Void Hunter vessel and exploded, but not like a normal weapon. Instead, it seemed to disrupt the ship's systems, causing lights to flicker and weapons to power down. What was that? Jackson demanded. Electromagnetic pulse mine, Morrison explained over the radio. Old technology from our early wars. Very simple, very effective against computer-controlled systems. The disabled Void Hunter ship drifted helplessly as its systems tried to restart. The other enemy vessels moved to protect it, but this created gaps in their formation. Lucy, take us through the gap, Morrison ordered. The Liberty shot through the enemy formation like a dart, too fast for the larger ships to track effectively. More MP mines dropped from the small human vessel, each one carefully aimed at critical system junctions on the Void Hunter ships. Impossible, whispered Jackson. They are using the enemy's size against them. Within 30 minutes, 3 Void Hunter ships were drifting dead in space, their adaptive systems overwhelmed by cascading failures. The remaining enemy vessels began to retreat, something that had never happened before. Fleet Commander Morrison's voice came over the radio. We have cleared a path for your ships. Suggest you advance now while they are confused. Jackson looked at his tactical display in amazement. The elderly humans in their ancient ship had done something that modern fleets could not accomplish. They had made the Void Hunters retreat. Colonel Morrison, Jackson said, how did you know that would work? Experience, son, Morrison replied. When you have fought as many different kinds of enemies as we have, you learn that there is no such thing as an unbeatable foe. There is only enemies. You have not figured out yet The USS Liberty turned toward the next enemy formation, ready for the next battle. The command ship Starfall was the most advanced vessel in the Galactic Council fleet. Its bridge was filled with the best tactical analysts and military observers from across the galaxy. They had come to watch what they expected to be the final battle in the Kepler 442 system. Instead, they found themselves watching something that should have been impossible. The human vessel is moving toward the main Void Hunter formation, reported tactical analyst Remara, her voice filled with disbelief. They are outnumbered 47-1. Admiral Zixthara stood at the center of the bridge, her blue skin pale with worry. She had seen the Liberty's first victory against the Void Hunter support ships, but this was different. The main enemy fleet consisted of 12 massive dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying entire star systems. "Patch me through to Colonel Morrison," she ordered. The main screen showed the bridge of the USS Liberty. The elderly human commander sat calmly in his chair, studying the enemy formation with the patience of someone who had seen this type of situation many times before. "Colonel," Admiral Zixthara said, "you must retreat. The main Void Hunter fleet is too strong. Even with your success against their support ships, you cannot face 12 dreadnoughts." Morrison looked up at the screen and smiled. "Admiral, with respect, you are thinking like a modern military officer. You see 12 big ships and think about firepower and armor. We see 12 big targets that cannot turn quickly." "Sir," interrupted Captain Carter from the pilot station, "enemy ships are spreading out. They learned from the last engagement. They are not bunching up like before." "Good," Morrison replied. "That means they are doing exactly what we want them to do." The observers on the Starfall watched in confusion as the Liberty began what looked like a random series of maneuvers. The ship would dart toward one enemy vessel, then suddenly change direction and head toward another. It seemed to make no sense. "What is their strategy?" asked Science Officer Torvik. "I cannot determine their pattern," Remara replied, studying her tactical display. "They appear to be playing." On the Liberty, the crew worked with the smooth coordination of people who had fought together for decades. Each person knew their job and trusted the others to do theirs. "Danny, status on the special packages," Morrison called out. Sergeant Webb checked his weapons console. "All 24 EMP mines ready, sir?" "But Colonel, the enemy ships have spread out too far. We cannot hit them all with electromagnetic pulses." "We do not need to hit them all at once," Morrison replied. "We just need to hit them in the right order. Lucy, take us to Target Alpha." Captain Carter guided the Liberty toward the leftmost Void Hunter dreadnought. The massive enemy ship turned to face them, its weapons powering up. But instead of firing, immediately, the Liberty dropped 3 MP mines and veered away. The mines exploded in sequence, creating a cascade of electromagnetic interference. The Void Hunter ship's weapons flickered and died, but its main systems remained online. "Partial success," reported Webb. "Their weapons are down, but engines are still functional." "That is all we need," Morrison said. "Pete, you ready for the next phase?" Master Chief Rodriguez moved to the transport bay, where his boarding team waited. 20 elderly humans in old-style combat armor stood ready for battle. Each one had fought in boarding actions during the colonial wars. "Ready when you are, Colonel," Rodriguez replied. The Liberty suddenly accelerated toward the disabled Void Hunter ship. The enemy vessel tried to turn away, but its weapons were still offline, and it could not fire back. "They are going to ram," gasped someone on the Starfall's bridge. But again, the humans did something unexpected. At the last moment, the Liberty matched course with the Void Hunter ship and extended a docking tube. The two vessels connected with a metallic clang that echoed through space. "Boarding action," Rodriguez announced over the radio. "We are going in." The Starfall's observers watched their screens in amazement as the human boarding team entered the enemy vessel. Within minutes, explosions could be seen inside the Void Hunter ship as the elderly soldiers fought their way to the bridge. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Zixthara asked. "The Void Hunters are supposed to be unbeatable in close combat." On the Liberty's bridge, Morrison listened to radio reports from his boarding team. "Rodriguez here. We have secured the engine room. These machines fight like computers. Very predictable." "Copy that, Pete. What about the bridge?" "Working on it now, sir. Johnson found their main processor. Looks like we can turn this bucket around and use it against them." The other Void Hunter. Ships had begun moving toward the captured vessel, but they were cautious. They had never seen tactics like this before and were unsure how to respond. "Colonel," came Carter's voice, "we have got company coming. 5 enemy ships approaching fast." "Perfect," Morrison replied. "Pete, how much longer do you need?" "Give me 2 more minutes, sir." "We are almost in control of their main systems." The approaching Void Hunter ships opened fire on their own captured vessel, trying to destroy it before the humans could use it against them. But the Liberty was still docked to the ship, and its shields were protecting both vessels. "Shields at 60%, reported Webb. "We cannot take much more of this." "We do not need much more," Morrison said calmly. "Pete, status report." "We have control, sir." "This machine is ours now." The captured Void Hunter ship suddenly turned and began firing on its former allies. The enemy vessels were caught completely off guard. Their adaptive systems had never encountered a situation where one of their own ships turned against them. "Impossible," whispered Ramara on the Starfall. They turned an enemy ship into an ally. But the humans were not finished. While the Void Hunter ships were dealing with their traitorous vessel, the Liberty detached and began hunting the next target. The same pattern repeated: MP mines to disable weapons, boarding action to capture the ship, then turning it against the enemy fleet. They are not just winning, Admiral Zixthara realized. They are growing stronger with each victory. Within 4 hours, 6 Void Hunter dreadnoughts had been captured and turned against their former fleet. The remaining enemy ships found themselves outnumbered by their own vessels, now controlled by human boarding teams. "This is Colonel Morrison to all Void Hunter ships," came a broadcast over the radio. "You have one chance to surrender. Leave this system now and never return, or we will capture the rest of your fleet." The response was immediate. The remaining Void Hunter ships began retreating at maximum speed, leaving behind their captured vessels and fleeing toward the edge of the galaxy. "They are running," Admiral Zixthara said in amazement. "The Void Hunters are actually running away." On the Liberty's bridge, Morrison stood and stretched his old back. "Danny, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them the Kepler system is secure." "Sir," Carter asked, "what do we do with the captured ships?" "We give them to the Council," Morrison replied. "They can study them, learn from them. Maybe next time they will not need to call us old folks." Master Chief Rodriguez's voice came over the radio from one of the captured ships. "Colonel, you should see this. These machines were not just weapons. They were carrying something else." "What kind of something else, Pete?" "Prisoners, sir. Thousands of them. Alien civilians from the systems they conquered. They are all alive." Morrison smiled. "Well, that changes things. Looks like we are not just soldiers today. We are rescuers, too." The Starfall's bridge was completely silent as the crew processed what they had witnessed. A single ship with elderly human crew had defeated an enemy fleet that had destroyed entire star systems. They had done it without advanced weapons or superior technology. They had done it with experience, creativity, and the kind of tactical thinking that could only come from decades of fighting impossible battles. "Admiral," Ramara said quietly, "I think we need to revise our understanding of human military capabilities." Admiral Zixthara nodded. Still staring at the tactical display where captured Void Hunter ships now flew in formation with the USS Liberty. Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the old human soldiers have won a victory that our best fleets could not achieve. She paused, then added, and request permission to ask Colonel Morrison how we can learn from their methods. In the deep space around them, the rescued prisoners were being transferred to Council medical ships. The Void Hunter threat was not over, but for the first time in months, there was hope that it could be defeated. The elderly humans had shown the galaxy that sometimes the oldest weapons are the most effective ones. And sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones who have learned that winning is not about having the best equipment, but about knowing how to use what you have in ways your enemy cannot predict. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any meeting in their long history. Representatives from dozens of alien races filled the great chamber, all talking at once about the impossible reports coming from the war zones. High Chancellor Mordith called for order by striking his ceremonial gong. The ancient sound echoed through the hall, and slowly the voices died down. His old reptilian eyes surveyed the crowd before speaking. "We are here because our understanding of warfare has been proven wrong," he announced. "In the past week, human veterans in outdated ships have achieved victories that our combined fleets could not accomplish in months of fighting." Council member Veltar from the Aquarian Federation stood up, water still dripping from his nervous gills. "The reports make no sense, Chancellor. How can elderly soldiers in primitive ships defeat an enemy that destroyed our best technology?" "Perhaps we should ask them directly," Mordith replied. The main screen activated, showing the bridge of a captured Void Hunter ship. Commander Helen Price, 69 years old, sat in what had once been the enemy captain's chair. Her weathered face showed the scars of many battles, and her gray hair was pulled back in a simple military style. Behind her, other elderly humans worked at alien control stations, somehow making the captured technology work for them. The ship's bridge looked strange with human equipment mixed in with the original Void Hunter systems. "Commander Price," Chancellor Mordeth said formally, "the Council requests an explanation. How are your forces achieving these victories?" Price looked directly at the camera with eyes that had seen too much war to be impressed by ceremony. "We are not doing anything special, Chancellor. We are just fighting the way we always have." "But your methods are completely different from standard military doctrine," protested Admiral Zixthara, who had joined the council session by video link. "You use tactics that no military academy teaches." "That is because military academies teach young soldiers how to fight other young soldiers," Price replied calmly. "They teach rules and procedures and proper formations. We learned a long time ago that rules get you killed when the enemy does not follow them." Science Minister Torvek leaned forward in his seat. "Commander, our analysis shows that the Void Hunters adapt to conventional tactics within hours. How do you prevent them from learning your strategies?" Price smiled, and there was something cold in that smile. "Minister, you are asking the wrong question. You want to know how we stop them from learning. The real question is, how do we make them learn the wrong things?" The council members looked at each other in confusion. None of them understood what the human meant. "Explain," ordered Chancellor Mordith. "The Void Hunters are machines that think like computers," Price said. "Computers learn by finding patterns and predicting what will happen next. So we give them patterns to find, but we make sure those patterns lead them into traps." She gestured to one of her crew members, an elderly man working at a tactical station. "Sergeant Miller here fought in the AI uprising of 2387. He knows how artificial minds work because he spent 3 years fighting rebel computers that had taken over our own military systems." Sergeant Miller looked up from his console. At 74 years old, his hands moved across the alien controls with surprising skill. The trick is not to be unpredictable, he explained. The trick is to be predictable in the wrong way. You let the enemy think they understand your pattern, then you use that understanding against them. Can you give us a specific example? Asked Intelligence Director Kashina. Yesterday, we attacked the Void Hunter base at the Altair system. Price replied. We sent 3 ships in a standard flanking formation. The enemy adapted their defenses to counter that formation, just like they always do. And then, prompted Admiral Zixthara, then we waited 6 hours and attacked with the same formation again. The Void Hunters were ready for us, but this time, our ships were carrying boarding teams instead of heavy weapons. While they were set up to defend against an artillery attack, we landed troops on their stations. A council chamber was silent as the aliens tried to understand this strategy. You deliberately used a failed tactic twice, asked Veltar. We used a tactic that appeared to fail, Price corrected. The first attack was never meant to succeed. It was meant to teach the enemy the wrong lesson. Minister Torvik shook his head in confusion. This seems unnecessarily complicated. Why not simply use your best tactics from the beginning? Because the enemy would learn from our best tactics and counter them, Price explained patiently. Instead, we teach them to counter our fake tactics. By the time they realize the truth, we have already won. Chancellor Mordif was quiet for a long moment. His ancient mind was trying to process this completely different way of thinking about warfare. Commander Price, how did your people develop these methods? We had to, Price replied simply. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have fought each other. We have fought our own machines. We have fought in every kind of environment you can imagine. Each war taught us something new about how to survive. She paused, looking directly at the camera. Your races are lucky. Chancellor, most of you achieved space travel before you had to fight truly desperate wars. You learned to fight in an organized, civilized way. We learned to fight when civilization was falling apart around us. Are you saying our military training is inadequate? Admiral Zixthara asked, her voice showing some anger. I am saying your military training is designed for a different kind of enemy, Price replied calmly. Your soldiers are trained to fight. Honorable opponents who follow rules. The Void Hunters are not honorable. They are predators. And how does one fight predators? Asked Chancellor Mordith. You become something worse than a predator, Price answered. You become something that predators are afraid of. On the screen behind Price, other human crew members could be seen working with captured Void Hunter prisoners. The mechanical beings were being questioned, studied, and slowly reprogrammed to provide information about their home bases. What are your people doing to those prisoners? Asked Kashina with concern. We are learning from them, Price replied. Every captured Void Hunter tells us something about their network, their plans, their weaknesses. They cannot help but give U.S. information, because that is how they are programmed. Is this not torture? Veltar asked, his tentacles moving with distress. No, Price said firmly. We are not causing them pain. We are simply asking them questions and listening to their answers. The problem is that they are designed to share information with each other. So when we ask them questions, they try to answer even when they do not want to. Master Chief Rodriguez appeared on screen behind Price. A 75-year-old soldier was leading a group of captured Void Hunter technicians who were working on modifying their own ship systems. Commander, Rodriguez reported, the prisoners have finished upgrading our shields. They say the modifications will make us invisible to Void Hunter sensors. Invisible? Admiral Zixthara asked in surprise. Not really invisible, Price explained, but the Void Hunters will see us as one of their own ships. Their programming makes them trust certain signal patterns. We convinced our prisoners to teach us those patterns. You convinced enemy prisoners to help you fight their own people? Chancellor Mordif asked, We explained the situation to them. Price replied, "It turns out that the Void Hunters are not happy being machines. They were once a living race that uploaded their minds into computers to achieve immortality. But they have been machines for so long that they forgot how to think. Like living beings." She leaned forward in her chair. "Some of them want to remember what it was like to be alive. They are helping us because they hope we can teach them how to feel emotions again." The council chamber was completely silent. None of the alien representatives had expected this revelation. "Commander Price," Chancellor Mordith said slowly, "are you saying that this war is not just about stopping an invasion? It is about saving a lost civilization?" "Maybe," Price replied. "Or maybe it is about putting them out of their misery. We will not know until we reach their home base and see what they have become." She stood up from the captain's chair and looked directly at the camera. "Chancellor, your people called us because you could not defeat the Void Hunters with modern tactics. We are defeating them because we understand something your young soldiers do not." "What is that?" Mordith asked. "Sometimes the enemy is not your real problem," Price said. "Sometimes the real problem is that you are fighting the wrong war. You thought this was a war about technology and firepower. It is actually a war about memory and identity." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. The alien leaders had called for help against an unstoppable military threat. Instead, they had discovered that their elderly human allies were fighting a completely different kind of battle, one that might save both the galaxy and their enemies at the same time. 6 months had passed since the human veterans first entered the Warzone. What had begun as a desperate last stand had become something no one expected, a hunt that would end at the very heart of Void Hunter space. General Frank Hayes stood on the bridge of the captured Void Hunter command ship, looking out at the massive structure ahead of them. At 77 years old, he had fought in more wars than most people could remember. The corporate wars, the AI uprising, the Martian Revolution. Each conflict had taught him something about the nature of enemies and allies. "General, we are approaching the Nexus," reported Captain Lisa Morgan from the pilot station. She was 65 and had navigated ships through the most dangerous parts of space during the asteroid. Mining wars. The Nexus was unlike anything the human veterans had ever seen. It was an artificial planet made entirely of connected machines, stretching for thousands of kilometers in every direction. Millions of Void Hunter ships moved around it like insects around a hive. "How many ships are we looking at?" Hayes asked. "Our sensors count over 10 million vessels," replied Lieutenant Colonel Bob Turner from the tactical station. "But sir, most of them are not moving. They appear to be dormant." Hayes nodded slowly. During their 6-month campaign, the human teams had learned disturbing things about their enemy. The Void Hunters were not conquerors in the traditional sense. They were refugees, the last remnants of a race that had been running from something for so long they had forgotten what they were running from. "Any response to our communications?" Hayes asked. "Yes, sir," answered communications specialist Ruth Adams. "They are asking to speak with what they call the Rememberers, the humans who help their captured people remember emotions." Hayes smiled grimly. The breakthrough had come 3 months ago, when Master Chief Rodriguez discovered that some Void Hunter prisoners wanted to remember what it felt like to be alive. Working with human psychologists, they had developed ways to help the machine beings recover fragments of their original personalities. "Put me through to their leader," Hayes ordered. The main screen flickered and showed the interior of the Nexus. A massive chamber filled with cables and processors stretched as far as the eye could see. In the center sat a being that was part machine, part something else, something that might once have been organic. "I am Prime Node 7, the being said in a voice that sounded like grinding metal mixed with whispered words. "You are the humans Who claim you can help us remember? We are, Hayes replied. But first, we need to understand what you are running from. The screen changed to show images from deep space, something vast and dark moving between the stars. It was hard to make out details, but whatever it was enormous beyond imagination. The Devourers, Prime Node 7 said. They consume everything, matter, energy, consciousness itself. We fled from them 10,000 years ago. We became machines so we could run faster, live longer, fight better. And did it work? Hayes asked. For a while. But in becoming machines, we lost something important. We forgot why we wanted to survive in the first place. Staff Sergeant Bill Murphy, examining the alien technology around them, looked up from his console. At 72, he had spent years studying captured enemy equipment. General, I think I understand what happened. They uploaded their minds to escape death, but they accidentally deleted their emotions in the process. Is that fixable? Hayes asked. Maybe, Murphy replied. But it would require shutting down their entire network temporarily. Every Void Hunter in the galaxy would be vulnerable during the process. Prime Node 7's image flickered with what might have been fear. The Devourers may still be hunting us. If we become vulnerable, they could find us and finish what they started. Hayes walked closer to the screen, studying the ancient being's face. How long has it been since you last detected the Devourers? 8,437 years, Prime Node 7 replied immediately. And in all that time, you have been running and conquering, trying to build defenses against an enemy that might not even exist anymore. The threat is real, Prime Node 7 insisted. Maybe, Hayes said, but even if it is, what you have become is not living. You are just machines going through the motions of survival without remembering what survival is for. Colonel Morrison's voice came over the radio from another captured ship. General, we have teams standing by at 12 major Nexus connection points. If we are going to try this, now is the time. Hayes looked at Prime Node 7. We can help you remember what you used to be. But you have to trust us. You have to shut down your defenses and let us work. And if the Devourers come while we are helpless, then we fight them, Hayes replied simply. That is what humans do. We fight things that want to destroy what we protect. Prime Node 7 was silent for a long moment. Around the Nexus, millions of ships waited for the decision that would determine the fate of their entire race. Why would you risk this for us? Prime Node 7 finally asked. We have been your enemies. We have killed your allies. Because you are not really our enemies, Hayes answered. You are victims who forgot they were victims. And because sometimes the only way to win a war is to save everyone, including the people you are fighting, the decision was made. Across the galaxy, Void Hunter fleets began shutting down their weapons and gathering at predetermined locations. Human veteran teams, working with reprogrammed Void Hunter technicians, prepared for the most dangerous operation of their lives. Beginning system shutdown in 3 minutes, announced Master Chief Rodriguez over the communication network. All human teams, remember, we get one chance at this. If we fail, every Void Hunter in the galaxy dies. The process began slowly. One by one, the machine networks that had sustained the Void Hunters for thousands of years went offline. Ancient programming that had kept their consciousness trapped in digital form was carefully removed and replaced with new code that would allow them to remember emotions. General, called out Captain Morgan, we are detecting massive energy signatures. From deep space, something big is coming. Hayes felt his blood turn cold. The Devourers? Unknown, sir. But whatever it is, it will be here in 6 hours. The timing could not have been worse. The Void Hunter consciousness restoration would take at least 8 hours to complete. They would be helpless for 2 hours after the unknown threat arrived. "All human forces," Hayes announced over the radio. "We have incoming hostiles. Prepare for defensive action." "Sir," interrupted Murphy from his console, "I am getting readings from the approaching objects. They are not ships." "What are they?" "Think. I think they are void hunters. Original ones. The ones that stayed behind when the others fled." On the screen, Prime Node 7's image flickered with confusion. "That is impossible. We were the last survivors. Maybe you were the first." "Refugees," Hayes suggested. "Maybe others chose to stay and fight instead of running." As the objects drew closer, it became clear that Murphy was right. They were void hunter ships, but different from the ones they had been fighting. These were older, more organic looking, and they were transmitting messages in the original void hunter language. "What are they saying?" Hayes asked Prime Node 7 listen to the transmissions, his mechanical features showing something that might have been wonder. They are saying, "Welcome home. They have been searching for us for 10,000 years. The Great Restoration continued as the original void hunters arrived to help. Working together, organic and mechanical void hunters began the slow process of rebuilding what had been lost. Emotions began returning to mechanical minds. Memories of love, hope, and purpose flickered back to life in digital consciousness. "General," reported Rodriguez, "the process is complete. All void hunter consciousness has been successfully restored. Around the Nexus, millions of ships came back online, but something was different. The beings aboard them were no longer just machines following programming. They were people again, remembering what it meant to be alive." Prime Node 7's image on the screen showed a face that was still part machine, but now had eyes that held real emotion, gratitude, wonder, and something that might have been joy. "Thank you," he said simply. "We had forgotten what it felt like to be grateful." Hayes smiled. "Now you can choose what to do with your lives instead of just running from death. What will you do now?" Prime Node 7 asked. "We go home," Hayes replied. "Our job here is done." As the human veterans prepared to leave, they knew they had accomplished something more important than winning a war. They had saved a civilization by teaching them how to remember what it meant to be alive. The galaxy was safe, not because the void hunters had been defeated, but because they had been healed. And the elderly human soldiers had proven once again that sometimes the most powerful weapon is not a gun or a bomb, but the wisdom to know when fighting is not the answer. The old soldiers headed home, their mission complete, leaving behind galaxy where former enemies had become something new, a people who remembered both the value of survival and the importance of living.